Good day, viewers. Welcome to BTVI. I'm Sriram Iyer, and this is a special coverage, part of our continuing series on the bad loan crisis that is bleeding Indian banks. 2 years ago, the RBI had set a deadline of 31st March 2017 for banks to recover all bad loans made thus far and book losses on the rest. But now, with just 3 weeks to go for the big deadline, banks are nowhere close to meet it. As part of our campaign here at BTVI, which we are calling Own Up, Clean Up, we are getting views from different stakeholders on what could be the possible way out while maintaining the accountability of each node in the banking value chain. Today, we begin this coverage with an exclusive input from top bankers. And for that, we have Swati Khandelwal joining us. Swati, it seems like banks are between a rock and a hard place, no resolution in sight.
Absolutely no resolution. In fact, Sriram, just to give you a perspective of how we reached out on this story to the top bankers, the PSU bankers in the country, and the sense that we get from them, and each of them, by the way, is pretty comprehensive and pretty much to the effect that, you know, there is no solution inside. The options are not even limited. There are none at the table at this point. They have, of course, got themselves into a big problem with lots of NPA that we've been talking about in this channel and elsewhere. I mean, everybody is talking how banking space is saddled with huge NPAs and there's no recovery in sight. What's essentially the problem of the bankers that they're facing at this point are multifold. One, there is no taker really for the assets that they are sitting on, or even if they want to sell out some of that they've been talking about. So there are no takers or buyers for assets. There's huge haircut, in fact, which are discouraging banks to go out there and sell assets. I mean, imagine, in fact, I was talking to one of the top PSU bankers who told me that, you know, there is an asset for about 1,000 odd crore rupees. Imagine the kind of haircut they will have to take on it. Somebody's offering 100 or 200 odd crore rupees on it, which is not making sense for them to, you know, really go out there and sell. So they are obviously in a bit of a situation there. Also, ARCs, if you see, a bit of the work is happening on that front, but not much. I mean, ARCs, we know, practically have failed, and all the bankers that I spoke to are of the view that there's no respite coming in from them as well. In fact, very important point that all of them said is that the NPAs are going to go up, and go up quite smartly and significantly over the next 4 quarters. So that's giving us a sense, and the reason why all the, the rating agencies are so negative on the banking space. So the next 4 quarters are going to be as bad as one can imagine, or as far as NPAs of these bankers, rising goes. Also, when we talk to them of a solution, you know, what is it that the government could do, the finance ministry could do, or the RBI could do here to help them? Frankly, not of an option except for them to wait for economy to revive, what they were hoping, which of course didn't happen, and demonetization is partly to be blamed, at least the bankers say that, but now the recovery and economic activity being picked up is something that they are waiting for with bated breath, and they hope that could sort of get the credit offtake, will pick up, and that could in turn make borrowers, look at their assets and their intention to sort of turn them around, etc., could come in. Right now, the borrowers are actually, one banker actually told me that they're giving the keys to the bankers and saying, here it is, you take the asset, do what you want to do with it. So, so when you talk about SARFAESI, the bankruptcy code, these are some very empowering, tools that the finance ministry talks about that have been given to the bankers. The bankers say they are of no good. I mean, what do you do with so many cases out there, with litigation that one will have to get into, which will incur more cost? I mean, these are good in theory, but practically giving no solution to them, and hence for the next 4 quarters things are going to be as bad until the economy really picks up.
Swati, from what it sounds like, the bankers are only reconfirming many of the fears that have been expressed by the likes of Moody's, by the likes, even the economic survey, the latest one, said that the bad loans are going to rise in this year and the next. FY18 is not looking so good for banks, and especially with these bad loans piling up and the old ones finding no resolution. You spoke about, a funny thing, they're saying that, please take our keys and do whatever you want with our assets. Clearly, no takers is a big hurdle for them, isn't it?
Absolutely. In fact, just to give you a sense of, when I tried to ask them about really the solution, what do you do with assets, then you're sitting on huge debt issues. So, the sense that I also picked up from them was of the view that, there are no big corporates coming and taking loans from them. So, it's not that the bankers have sort of restrained themselves from lending because they've been once bitten, twice shy, but they're also not getting anybody to come and take loans from them. So, they are in a bit of a catch-22 right now. Also, consolidation that everyone's been talking about, Sriram, I want to highlight that and tell you that while we are seeing SBI, of course, go through, the bankers actually said that if it was for them to take this decision, no banker would have agreed on it. It's just the finance ministry who's obviously, making them come together and sit and talk, etc. But they are testing waters because, again, there are a lot of hurdles there as well. You talk about the IT issues, you talk about the HR issues, and that have to be sort of ironed out. So they are testing waters with SBI merger that's going to be effective from 1st of April. What I'm given to understand is 6 to 8 months will be something that they will give, or maybe a year for this to settle down, and only then go out there and ask the other bankers to look at a possible consolidation, only if they see that there's success that they see from SBI.
Yes, Swati. Now let's take this conversation forward. I mean, that's a fantastic input coming in from Swati. All the bankers throwing up their arms, saying that we are running out of ideas. Let's ask some of the people who have been in positions of making such decisions in the past. KC Chakrabarti, former RBI Deputy Governor, he's joining us right now from London. Thank you, Mr. Chakrabarti, for joining us. Mr. BP Sharma, the former Executive Director at Bank of India, he's also on the phone line with us right now. Thank you, gentlemen. This is BTVI. Here's the campaign that's running. We're calling it Own Up, Clean Up, the bad loan crisis that has completely crippled Indian banking system, and with no resolution in sight, it really seems like no light at the end of the tunnel. Mr. Chakrabarti, would you say?
You see, look, we are still in the tunnel. There is no light.
So what do you think? What do you think the bank should do? Throwing up their arms right now? I mean, 2 years after the deadline was set, can they today turn around and say we really don't know what to do?
You see, look, the problem is that if banks can't do anything, they should write off and they should be capitalized. There is no other way. If you are saying bank feels nothing can be done about NPA, then you write off the entire NPA and recapitalize and start afresh.
So recapitalize, I mean, is easier said than done. The finance minister, from what it seemed in the budget, was not willing to give more than 10,000 crores for now.
Privatize the bank.
and there are no...
Look, I am again telling you, the issue is that what you are saying, you say that banks will create the NPA, then you say that we don't know what is to be done. You see, the problem is that we must understand why this problem has happened. And then, are we doing something that this problem is not aggravated further? Now, there is no sign. Do we understand what is the problem? What is the quantum of the problem? What is the dimension of the problem? We have no idea about that. Even bankers themselves have no idea about that. We are only talking in the air. You must understand that's the basic issue.
The magnitude of the problem is something that is still very uncertain, says Mr. KC Chakrabarti. Let me take this across to Mr. Sharma.
I am not saying as of today, what is the problem?
So indeed. So, Mr. Sharma, do you want to counter that? Do banks really do not know what is the scale of the issue? We've been, there are a lot of numbers have been thrown at us over the quarters, over months, over the years, in fact. And still, there is someone who's been at the central bank in the past who says that the magnitude of the situation is still very uncertain, even to the banks.
Well, I think I have been listening to 15 minutes discussion going up. I think... Of course, the banks have three problems, C, and M. That is capital, credit offtake, and NPA. Okay, these are the three problems. But banks have thrown their hands is something not acceptable. See, it's not for the first time such a NPA percentage has happened in banking industry. It had happened in past also. The basic issue is when a big infrastructure does not take up, the lenders are definitely important stakeholders, but there are also other stakeholders. So it makes a collective responsibility and collective owning up. Basically, infrastructure failed.
So, Mr. Sharma, let me actually. I mean, now that you're disputing what you're saying, when we are saying throwing their hands up. From what we know so far, we've had bankers on our channel saying that we want more leeway, we want more time. 31st March deadline is not, we're not going to be able to meet it. We want more capital, as you yourself have said. And then we have listed out 10 other reasons why the 31st March deadline will not be met. Consolidation in the banking system. I mean, I should actually let Swati take this forward because she spoke to some of the top bankers. And Swati, would you like to explain to Mr. Sharma, is throwing their hands up really such a harsh statement at this stage from what you've heard from the bankers?
Right, Mr. Sharma, as Sriram is pointing out, I just want to understand from you, you're saying that's not acceptable. They can't just put up their hands out there and say, we can't do much about it. Frankly, when we talk to the bankers, they also say that because they are PSUs, there's a social obligation also on them to ensure that they spend in social sectors and they give and lend to the social sectors as well. So, they did give us a sense of how, they vis-a-vis a private bank are different in that sense. They have their hands tied in some way to take those decisions, and the NPAs are not entirely their problem, but there's a lot which was not which was not in their control in that sense. That's the message and the underlining meaning we pick up from them. So to say that they have thrown their hands up in the air is not acceptable, then what is acceptable, sir? At this situation, they are talking about and there's really no taker for their assets. I mean, why would you sell an asset which is of a great potential but is being given at a throwaway price? I mean, that is also not solving their problem entirely. So what is the solution that you think is with the banks at this point, if not put their hands up in the air and say, you can't do much?
Okay, I got your point. See, coming back, we compare private sector and public sector banks. Now, some of the bankers are telling you to do some social banking like priority sector. Then I would like to remind them, the private sector bank, their credit to wholesale credit as a percentage to entire credit, it's quite low compared with public sector banks. The retail advances, which includes priority sector, there the incident of NPA is very less. So to say that because of this we will throw our hands is not correct. In fact, the public sector banks should look at private sector banks, reject their credit portfolio and reduce the wholesale credit on a percentage wise. Had they concentrated on priority sector, you look at any bank. I will give example of one bank, PNB. Originally, I got from PNB. PNB was one bank who always achieved priority sector target. The NPA percentage or the profitability percent of PNB is definitely better than other banks. So social banking is not a problem, it is an opportunity. That is not correct. Coming to a second point, monetizing the asset, well, there is a saying in a banker's language, in a credit, the outstanding is the fact and security is the presumption. What happens in case of infrastructure projects, if it does not come up, the original valuation at which it was acquired gets fast depleted. This is something nobody can think of or nobody can do anything. Yes, there is a need to address these NPA issues, and for that banks need capital.
So let me take this point forward, Mr. Sharma. Let me take this point forward to Mr. Chakravarti. Mr. Chakravarti, as Mr. Sharma is saying, it's really there is no point blaming priority sector for this, because at the end of the day, the loans that have gone bad are the ones that were made to infrastructure, power, steel, banking on a boom that will take this economy, through the sky. That didn't happen, and now where we are standing, there is really no hope in heaven that this is going to happen anytime soon.
You see, look, that is the precise point they're saying. Swati has given a very good report. But if she is saying banks are saying our NPAs are because of priority sector, they are incorrect. So that's what I'm saying. They don't know the problem. They don't have data. The problem is that banks have lent 33% of their credit to priority sector. 67% they have lent to non-priority sector, and they are 80% NPA, more than 80, it may be 85% NPA is from non-priority sector area. So how have you allocated the credit to a segment where the risk is more, your NPAs are more over the period of last 6-8 years? Now what is your, and there is no compulsion. So I can understand priority sector, there was a directive. Now, the problem is that for the last 40 years, we have only said probably public sector banks NPAs are high because of priority sector. It is only when I went to Reserve Bank, I provided this data and I showed them that credit risk is non-priority sector is much higher. Now nobody talks of priority sector. The moment I say, anybody says, people all agree. Now question arises that how come industry is a segment which is contributing to 18% of the GDP gets a credit allocation of 40% when the NPA is much higher in that segment?
Actually, let me take you back to the conversation that we were having earlier. I mean, you said the magnitude of the problem. And so, you know, from conversations, what I can say is that some people are of the view, including you, I suppose, is that what is really NPA at this point of time? What is a bad loan? Something that has been defaulted.
Of stress asset. Look,
yes, exactly.
What is NPA? What is the stress asset? What is the total quantum is?
Exactly.
For the system as a whole.
So, for example, the question that you raised sometime in the past, if a stressed asset, I mean, why is a restructured loan not an NPA? Do you still stand by that view?
No, not me. The Reserve Bank has said that from 1st April 2016, any restructured loan will be considered as NPA. This is the Reserve Bank circular. I am not saying anything. And in my view, the moment an account is restructured, it should be classified as NPA.
And if it does happen, if that circular is put into force, how much do you think the NPA will rise by?
The entire restructured standard advances will become NPA.
And then what
that amount is about 2.8 trillion rupees. It is available in the books.
So if $2.8 trillion becomes NPA, Mr. Chakrabarti, are we going to talk about the banking sector in India after that?
I am again telling you, still we don't know the dimension. It is today is the 6 trillion is the NPA which they are classifying. So 2.8 is the restructure. Then we have 5 by 25 restructuring. We have strategic restructuring. We have sustainable debt restructuring. That amount we are not adding. It combined together. Then we have 4 trillion rupees which we have written off over a period of last 10-15 years. Now do we consider that as NPA? Do we want to recover that amount? No, we are not. Now, if we add all these things together, and then also maybe some advances, what we call that, has not been classified as the stress asset. Now, that will give you the dimension of the problem. And then only you will be somebody has to find out that what is to be done. We have absolutely no idea. Not only it is total, which are the segment. Now, if we say restructure advances, this 95% restructure advances will be for big industry. So if we today say that industry is contributing to 70% of NPA, the moment you add a restructure asset, it will be 90%. Now, how have you made the risk? What is your risk management system? How have you allocated the credit to these segments that nobody questioning the banks?
Right.
Now, there was no pressure on the government that you must lend the non-priority sector even they are unviable.
Right. Of course, I got your point, sir, and I think there's lots of debate already going on how banks have, are responsible for their own work that they've done, and they are now, of course, struggling. But tell us now, what is the solution? You did talk about that penalty is something that one should look at, the government should look at, penalize banks. What is the form and structure do you think the banks should be penalized? Because remember, this is also penalizing a shareholder because these are all listed entities. I mean, how do you work around a model which penalizes the people who are responsible for what has happened and come out with a solution to this problem, because there's just back and forth issues that are being raised on how big is the problem of an NPA, how do you resolve it, etc. But what is the solution inside, and if you can explain and help us understand what is the format of penalizing the banks or people who've made decision should be.
You see, look, the issue is that this I had given what is to be done before 2 years. My speech is there in December 2015, that what is to be done. Look, it is very clear. First thing is that we must bring transparency to the system. That we must understand what is NPA. We should not hide the NPA. But what you are saying, banks are saying just opposite, that we should be allowed to hide the NPA. Now that's the basic problem. NPA is a sickness. It is just like sickness. If you are sick, you must first declare the sick as early as possible so that this problem is not there. Now banks are saying that nobody is taker of the asset. Why? Because the asset has no value. The time has passed on and you have only accumulated the interest on that, but underlying asset has no value. You don't want to take the haircut. You have only applied 13-14% interest on that. And that is how the entire NPA. So had you declared this account NPA at the very first instance where there was a stress amount, you would have not applied interest on that. The amount would have not gone up that much. Now, we must understand what the wrong thing we are doing.
Mr. Chakravarti, let me take your points to Mr. Sharma. Mr. Sharma, you are free to counter Mr. Chakravarti if you feel like in the middle of it also. But having said that, without of course making it a very noisy affair, my only thing is, Mr. Sharma, how do you respond to some of these allegations that have come from Mr. Chakravarti? A, where is the risk management system? What were the basis of these loans that were made? And high credit risk loans that were made without enough provisions, etc. And second point that I want to ask is, I mean, 2 years ever since this problem was acknowledged, why are we still talking about the cause and not the solution?
Exactly. We should talk about the solution, not about the cause.
Huh.
See, I have 2-3 solutions as a retired banker. Hello?
Yeah, we can hear you.
As a short-term measure, the government has to inject capital. How much? I won't put a figure to that. Government has to put in inject the capital. And as a short-term as well as medium-term, these public sector banks, where the NPA is very high, instead of giving a mandatory target of priority sector, it should be a reverse one. That is wholesale credit, there should be a cap. Otherwise, what happens? Capital is injected, balance sheet becomes healthy, and again after a 5, 10 years, 15 years, this problem crops up. And the reason everybody knows, some or other, the wholesale credit periodically has given a big shock to the banks. So instead of asking banks to earmark a particular personal credit for priority sector, there should be a cap on wholesale credit, especially...
Mr. Sharma, you seem to be blaming the priority sector again. Mr. Sharma, you seem to be blaming the priority sector again. I think we have fairly established that...
Today, priority sector is compulsory.
No, that's okay. But to blame priority sector for the NPAs is something that we have established that it's not fair because the credit risk...
I didn't say that. I say you put a cap on wholesale credit.
Okay.
Instead of asking banks to earmark 40% for priority sector, based on the balance sheet and capital adequacy, there should be a cap on wholesale credit.
So, Mr. Chakravarti, do you accept that formula that he is saying?
Why there should be cap? If you feel wholesale credit is risky, it is not profitable, you will not give because there is no mandate. I am not able to understand. Why do you want to have a cap on that? It is your business decision. If you feel that this business is not profitable, you will not lend to that segment. And there is no mandate for doing that. So you have no problem.
Mr. Sharma,
where is any mandate? Look, this is the problem. Problem is that we don't understand the problem.
So, Mr. Sharma, as a former banker and here is a former RBI governor, this is a nice clash of ideas.
I also have done banking.
Of course.
Sharma has worked with me, so no problem on that.
So, Mr. Sharma, how do you respond to that? Why do you want a cap on wholesale banking?
See, he was my boss. He is a very eminent banker.
Of course.
What's the point I'm trying to say? Today I can make a statement. All these wholesale credit decisions, theoretically the bankers are free and they have taken decisions based on their own consideration. But what extent is correct, that everybody knows. This raises the question of autonomy for public sector banks. Since it is not there, theoretically a board is competent to reject or sanction a loan. Theoretically, when a branch manager is competent to sanction or refuse a loan on merit. Theoretically. But keeping the ground realities, for some times there should be a cap. That is I told, mid-term solution. Of course, I have absolutely high respect for Dr. Chakravarti, sir. I would not like to join his team. His exposure is much higher than mine. But as a person having seen the board functioning, seeing all those things in two big banks, I can say the intermediate step there should be a cap on wholesale credit.
Are you satisfied?
Or banks are given full autonomy.
So the point always goes back to the autonomy of PSU banks. They don't have autonomy on while giving out credit. They don't have autonomy while settling bad loans. Swati, I mean, we are really sort of, I mean, the rock and a hard place analogy.
I don't agree. I have worked 30 years in the public sector, and I have not done anything which I don't want to do.
Okay.
I am telling you that, look, these are all wrong. Yes, in any democratic system, it works through the lobby, and there will be pressure on you. But that does not mean what is wrong you will do under pressure. In that case, you see, look, the issue is that you are not justifying the seat which you are occupying. So I am not at all of the view that because of banks don't have autonomy, no, banks have enough autonomy for doing what is the right and what is the and not doing what is the wrong. And especially in the area of non-priority sector lending.
Okay. So
absolutely, yes, there will be pressure.
Right.
Absolutely,
Mr.
no doubt.
Chakrabarti,
There will be pressure.
So Swati had broken a story a couple of weeks ago.
Mr. Chakrabarti, what about consortiums? What about consortiums of these banks and the assets that we're talking about? I'll give you examples. Bhushan Steel, case in point, because, you know, we know 27 banks are part of this consortium. Some small lenders want to exit and want to sell it off to a strategic player. But big banks are not of the view, they're not ready to take haircut. Now, they are, you know, autonomous is one thing, but what do you do in case where, and most of these assets are a part of consortium, how do you get out of that situation where all bankers have their own views?
I got you, open your, look, if the small bank is not interested, nobody can compel that bank to remain in the consortium, and he need not give the credit. Look, I am very clear that restructure will go, but that bank will not take any additional exposure, but his existing advance he has to forget. But look, if I am sure that this unit is not going to survive, I will not take additional exposure on that. I am not able to understand that we are all talking. That is what I am saying. There must be debate based on case by case. No problem. Yes, so if small bank does not want to take exposure, he will not take exposure. Okay. Banks which are taking additional exposure, first that money will be recovered, their money will be recovered. Thereafter, if it is left, even small banks will be able to recover the money.
Mr. Chakrabarti, I mean, I think we are kind of running out of time here, so I want to rush this discussion forward. We have fairly established your point of view. Banks should take the haircut where possible, and if you are not willing to do so, book your losses.
No, I have not said that. Banks now. What about the borrowers? Look, all we are discussing the bank. What is the borrower's haircut?
Okay. No, so the borrower's haircut, of course, the enforcement agencies will have to go after them.
Why should enforcement? Look, the borrowing the money and account becoming NPA, it is not a criminal offense. I don't know what type of department will go behind, go after them.
No, that's okay. Mr. Chakrabarti, I know that, you know, in the aftermath of the Mallya episode, this debate also is important. But I guess we have very little time for that. Today we are focusing on banks and what they can do at this stage. Of course, I mean, we are not saying that this is a criminal case or a civil case. Whatever law applies will be applied on these borrowers.
Exactly.
But my question to you is, as part of the solution that we were discussing, and one of the ideas that have been floated is that of a bad bank. And now, with your strong views on what the banks must do, and Swati asked you the question, why should the shareholders be burdened with the haircuts and booking losses? Why should the taxpayer be burdened with a bad bank? And what are your views on that?
You see, look, the problem is that the banking is such a business. If something goes wrong, then the taxpayer has to, ultimately somebody has to take the burden, and that is why banks are regulated, so that it should not become burden on the taxpayers. Now, why the equity holders should suffer? If they have given equity to wrong institution, they have to suffer. There is no other way. Equity is a risk-taking business. So these issues, if bank management, if the system has not functions properly, people who take the investment decision, they have to suffer. And in the case of banks, if ultimately they do not function, then society has to suffer. There is no other way, because ultimately burden will be on the taxpayer.
I don't own any bank shares. I didn't take those decisions. If there is a bad bank, why should I pay for it?
No, who is asking to pay for it? But if you don't pay, then also system will collapse. Now, look, the problem is that if you don't resolve this problem, it cannot continue because ultimately financial system has to work, function efficiently. It must allocate the resources to as per the needs of the development. Now, if you have to make that system functional, you have to resolve the existing stock of NPA. You cannot leave it out.
There is also this fear of, I mean, this is a story that also that Swati had done a week ago, where saying that bank managements, a lot of CMDs are up for retirement in the next 6 to 8 months, and that is causing a lot of reluctance on part of them for them to take these crucial settlement decisions, taking the haircuts, booking the losses. Mr. Chakraborty, do you think that this is a valid excuse? And I'm sure it is not. And having said that, why only fear about future probe after retirement? Why not fear about the probe in decisions taken so far? Why is that fear not there?
You see, look, this is the issue I have raised much earlier, that what is the accountability in a system. Now, in our country, it is a fashion in the public sector, in the government. What you say, bureaucrats don't take the decision out of fear. Bankers don't take the decision out of fear. I have no problem. We must understand they are serving. If out of fear you are not taking this decision, resign and go away. But I am not. How the system accepts such an alibi? That because I am fear, then you say soldier will go to fight the war because I am afraid of the bullet, so I will not go to war. You cannot have such thing. I perfectly agree. They are afraid. They are afraid of taking the decision. But what I say, please resign from your job. Go home and do that. Somebody else will come up who will be ready to take the decision. But I cannot say in my home, I have put a servant and she comes and he says that it is very risky to do the job in your house. So that's why I will not work, but you pay me salary. But how? This is the debate. And you are in the TV. You are
I just want your quick comment before we wrap this show up. Right, Mr. Sharma, just very quickly, we also broke a story about how Finance Ministry and the Steel Ministry, for example, is asking or pushing PSUs like SAIL to look at some of the private assets.
I'll tell you, this private bank, a bad bank or worst bank, the moot question is who will bail the cat. And the cat will be bailed only by government. The question is when, not whether.
The banks are looking to bail the government.
Because the public sector banks is a necessity for the government.
So the government will bail the cat.
The government will bail the cat or government is the cat?
Huh?
Government will bail the cat or government is the cat that the banks are looking to bail?
No. Government will bail the cat.
But government is not the entity. What is government? We have never defined what is government.
Okay. I think on a rather humorous note, I think we should end this very heated discussion, and I'm sure rightly so, with no offense meant to anyone. I'm sure the both sides have their own rationale and a very valid one at that. And Swati, I think you have triggered a debate that will go on for some time at least. And Mr. Chakraborty and Mr. Sharma, we would expect you to join us hereafter. This is a campaign that we are running on BTVI. We are calling this #OwnUpCleanUp. We would request our viewers to go and share your views. In fact, Mr. Chakraborty and Sharma, even you should do that if you are Twitter savvy. Are you?
No, I don't do, because I feel I don't do any, you see, anti-social media. I am not part of anti-social media.
No, of course. Again, your views, Mr. Chakraborty, not mine. It's social media and it remains so. And not all the trolls notwithstanding.
Comments comes, it is purely anti-social. That's why I don't join there. If I go through the comments.
Okay. So I hope the Twitter trolls are nicer and kinder to everyone, and particularly knowledgeable people like Mr. Chakraborty and Mr. Sharma. And we will request our viewers to go to visit our Twitter page @BTVI. The hashtag is #OwnUpCleanUp. Please share your views on how you think this bad loan mess should be resolved. And I'm sure it will contribute to the debate that we are conducting here. For now, it's a pause on this debate. We will continue our coverage on this. Stay with BTVI. Thanks for watching.